So now that we looked at Riemann sums, let's figure out the formal way of figuring out a definite integral, not just approximating, but figuring out the actual definite integral. We're going to go back to our example of 1 minus x squared, and now we're actually going to figure out the formal way, the precise and exact way of figuring out what the signed area is between the curve of 1 minus x squared and the x-axis. We can see there's more area below than there is above. We've already said the answer is -4/3. Let's see how we got there. I want to talk a little bit about again about the notation of definite integral. We have this little curvy s, which represents the signed area between the function and the x-axis. We also use the same symbol for antiderivative, and now we're going to tie in the lesson of Riemann sums with antiderivatives and the definite integral. The number that we put below this s is called the lower bound, so that's where we're starting. In other words, it's where we're starting to evaluate the signed area, so we're starting at -2. And the number that we put above our symbol is the upper bound. We call it the upper bound. It's where the signed area ends. Obviously, if those bounds were different and we get a different area, for example, if the bounds were from -1 to 1, we would only be concerned with this area right here, and it would, of course, be positive. And then again, the function that we're finding the signed area of, or the definite integral of, goes in parentheses to the right of the integral sign. In this case, we want to evaluate 1 minus x squared from -2 to 2, and you always want to include your dx since you're doing it in terms of x. Okay, so that's our first example. Let's go ahead and take a look and see how to figure it out. I'll go ahead and allude to how you're going to solve for the answer. Remember, this is the antiderivative sign, so naturally you're going to be taking the antiderivative. Now, I haven't explained why yet the antiderivative relates to area under a curve. It's pretty interesting. It's always been fascinating to me. One of the reasons why I like calculus so much is that somehow this area relates to the slope of the tangent line. We will talk about that later when we study the fundamental theorem of calculus. It's very in-depth, so I think it's worth going over some practical examples first before we look at the fundamental theorem. So for right now, let's learn these steps. We'll go back later and explain in detail the fundamental theorem. The first thing you're going to do is take the antiderivative of this function right here that you're trying to find the area of. So the antiderivative of 1 is x, simply because the derivative of x is 1. And the antiderivative of x squared is x cubed over 3, or 1/3 x cubed, using the reverse power rule. And of course, it's being subtracted, so that stays. That's like the constant multiple rule for antiderivatives. I do want to say that the antiderivative is noted with big F. Okay, if you have if the function you start with for the area is little f of x, then typically when you take the antiderivative, and especially when you're talking about area under a curve, you call the new function that you got big F of x. In other words, if you take the derivative of big F, you should get little f back, which is partly what the fundamental theorem says. Now notice there is no plus c here. Why? Well, the reason this is called the definite integral is because you're going to get a definite answer back. You're going to get a number back. You're not just going to get a function plus c. The reason you needed a plus c before was because you had a general equation. You're not asking so much what the area under the curve is as you're asking what the reverse derivative is. So for example, what's the reverse derivative of just 1? Y equals 1. Well, we know the reverse derivative is x, but it could be x plus 3, right? Because the slope of that tangent line is also 1, right? So if I had y equals 1, the antiderivative is y equals x, right? So let's say little f is f of x equals 1. Big F would be x, right? But it could be x plus 7, right? Because the slope of the tangent line for x is always 1. So that's why there's a plus c. But for area under a curve, if we had the equation y equals 1, it has a definite area on any given interval. the plus c would not matter. Okay, you would just find x would be the antiderivative and go from there. And so once you find the antiderivative for step 1, what you typically do is you put your lower and your upper bound up and to the right of whatever your answer is. And there's different ways I've seen it. I've seen people just put like a little line right here with your upper and lower bound. What it does is it tells you that you're eventually going to be plugging those bounds into your antiderivative function, your big F. So that's what we're going to do for steps 2, 3, and 4. Step 2 says to plug in the upper bound. So in other words, we're going to plug in 2 into our antiderivative function, since that was the upper bound of our function. The next step, which is step 3, is to plug in our lower bound, which is -2, and you're simply going to subtract these. So it's the antiderivative of b, which is your upper bound. So 1 minus, x minus 1/3 x cubed, minus the lower bound plugged into your antiderivative. So -2 minus 1/3, -2 cubed. So it's the upper bound plugged into big F, which is your antiderivative, subtracting the lower bound plugged into big F. Now notice, I put each of these in brackets, or you can use parentheses, and I put a subtraction sign around my function, my antiderivative with the lower bound plugged in. That's important because this minus will end up distributing to every term inside of my antiderivative. It's going to flip the sign of my second term, for example. So again, a good way to remember this is big F of b minus big F of a. And that actually will give you the antiderivative, or the signed area between the curve. And just to confirm that, we're going to go ahead and finish solving this problem out. So over here we have 2 minus 1/3. This is going to give us 8. It's going to be 2 minus 1/3, 8. Over here, this is going to become plus 2. And this is also going to become plus. Actually, this is going to stay negative. This is 3 negatives, so that's going to remain minus 8/3 as well. So you're going to have 2 plus 2 minus 8/3 minus 8/3. Let's take a look. All right, so here's the 2 minus the 1/3, 8. And then what I did actually is I did my exponents first. So -2 cubed is -8. And then I went ahead and multiplied. So it's going to be 2 minus 8/3 minus -2 plus 8/3, because this is a negative times a negative. Now we can distribute this negative into both of these. In fact, I'll show that with an arrow. So the first one's going to become plus 2. The second one's going to become minus 8/3. So again, that happened because there were 3 negatives. So now we can group our 2's together. So it's going to be 2 plus 2. I'm going to group those. And then it's going to be minus 8/3 minus 8/3. Which is right there. So the question is, what is that? Well, that's the same as 4 minus, give me a second here. It should be 4 minus 16/3. Okay, well, 4 is the same as 12/3. 12/3 minus 16/3 is, voila, -4/3. Remember, we kept getting a number close to that when we were using our Riemann sum approximations. And so this is just more of a confirmation as to being the actual signed area under the curve. From -2 to 2 of 1 minus x squared, the definite integral is equal to -4/3, which equals the signed area. So for example 1 in definite integral evaluation, if I have any other questions about this, let me know.